Today's session is around enabling team coaching, and I think this is a really important topic. I often think when I talk about TED, I often describe it as a coaching tool. And really, when we think around what TED's all about, there's a lot to TED. That it's a great survey. There's lots of really great toolkits. The report can be really useful for teams. But essentially, what it boils down to is we're trying to encourage coaching style team conversations. We're trying to encourage teams to have open conversations in a way that can help them navigate the challenges or the successes that they might face so that they can make the right decisions and make decisions together, and also so they can create a positive team culture amongst themselves. So coaching is really at the core of what TED's all about, and that's something we really want to encourage in our team leaders and in teams, really. And I think if we can encourage this sort of coaching culture, then we can have a really big impact across our organisations. So today's session is going to focus on a little bit of your role as practitioners, how you can encourage that coaching approach across your team leaders. We're going to look at techniques for how you might foster a coaching culture and how TED can be part of that. And we're going to look at some of the core fundamentals of what constitutes good team coaching, what team coaching looks like, and look at how we can use that to empower our leaders, build that confidence in them, but also how we can play a part in supporting that and building that capability across team leaders in our organisation. And if you have just joined, I've got my colleague Ian Mills on the call, who's going to be sharing some of the things that we've been building for our team leaders at Lancs Teaching Hospitals. So I'll bring you in, Ian, later on in today's session. Fab. So first of all, we start with the why. So why is team coaching important? And when we think about it, it has benefits at different levels. The research shows that there's benefits at different levels across an organisation when we do have this coaching culture. But first and foremost, it has an impact for teams themselves. It's about bringing team members together through collaboration. So it's about the shared approach. It's about creating shared ownership and a group approach to problem solving. And it also helps to build trust and create psychological safety in teams when people feel that they can contribute towards the answers, contribute towards the decision process, but also recognise that they are part of that whole in the team. And there are perhaps lots of different perspectives in a team environment, but coaching can help to unlock those different perspectives and help teams decide on what the best way forward is. From a team leader's perspective, a coaching approach helps to share the workload across the team. I often find that sometimes team leaders do have a bit of trepidation when they come to TED because they feel like it's all going to be on their shoulders in terms of coming up with the solutions or having the answers. And I think often because team leaders might be the ones with the experience or the qualification, or on a higher pay band than the team, so they feel that ownership on themselves. But if we can try and encourage this coaching approach and this idea that you don't necessarily have to have all the answers, you have to work with your team to come up with what's the best answer for us right now. And I think coaching can be a really useful skill for team leaders to have, and can be quite liberating when team leaders think about it, because it helps to harness that support of the team by bringing people together. So it helps to build those relationships in the team and involve others in that decision making. And final point on there is that it has benefits at an organisation level as well. So if we can build this culture of team coaching across our NHS trust, different organisations that we work in, then it helps to enhance performance across the organisation. It also helps to build resilience. And we definitely know that NHS teams really need that right now with all the sort of changes that are going on. And it seems on an almost monthly basis, there's new information that teams need to deal with, new things to take into consideration. And these might be at an organisation level, they might be at a national level, it might be things in the media, or it might be things localised to their teams. So coaching can be a really great way of gathering an understanding of what our current context is and thinking around what's the best that we can do right now with the information that we've got. So it helps to unlock those sorts of things. And at an organisation level, the more teams we get doing that, the more it helps us to align teamwork with organisational objectives and priorities, and it helps us to become more resilient as an organisation as well. So that's the why. When we think about the what, when we consider what team coaching is, it can be useful to first think about what coaching is not. If we think about teaching and mentoring, these might be useful skills for a team leader to have. They're definitely things that can enhance what a team leader does. And there will definitely be occasions when team leaders need to provide their experience, need to perhaps advise and inform the work of their team. And I'm thinking particularly perhaps when you've got new staff in the team who might need that bit more hands-on guidance, that mentoring style approach. But when we think about teaching and mentoring, the sort of pitfalls of this from a leadership perspective is that if this is our only approach, then it does put a lot of pressure on the team leader to have all the answers. And I know Ian will likely touch on this a little bit later, but when a team leader is under that pressure to have all the answers, they don't necessarily have the experience of every situation that they're in. And the reality is often that the situation a team might find themselves in today is very different from when that team leader was in perhaps an operational role and going through something similar, because the context has changed, the climate's changed, the team's different. You'll have different people and personalities in the team. So the team leader doesn't always have that first-hand experience, and it can help to really build on the sort of shared experiences of the team. And that's where things like coaching and facilitation can really help. So these are really important skills for team leaders to have, particularly in quite a volatile or uncertain environment that teams might operate in today. So when we think about coaching and facilitation, it involves more about asking questions and creating a collaborative environment. It's around being able to share different viewpoints and recognize those different views and factor them into decision making. So these skills enable a team leader to harness those combined skills and experience of the team. It also helps to alleviate some pressure on themselves because it isn't all on that one individual. And also it helps to encourage a learning culture within teams so that teams feel that they can perhaps try things and also be okay with sometimes things won't work, but we'll learn from it. And what I also think it does is it helps strengthen that bond between a team and its team leader, because the team isn't necessarily being instructed in what to do, they are being involved in it, and it helps them. It helps teams feel that their team leader cares about their views, that they understand their views, and even if the course of action isn't what someone suggested in the team, they will understand that decision process because you'll have talked about it together. You'll have gone through that coaching approach, exploring different avenues, considering different ways forward, and you'll have chosen what feels right for the team right now. So those are some of the sort of real benefits in terms of team coaching. But also when we think about what actually makes successful team coaching, there's all these different elements that can make it successful. So first point we've got there is around systems thinking. So good team coaching would involve a team acknowledging the wider perspective, perhaps the knock-on consequences of any actions that they might have, and how they perhaps interconnect with maybe other teams or with the organisation or the sort of climate with which they're operating in. Second point on there is around psychological safety, and this is definitely something we want to encourage through TED. So this is around creating that safe space where every team member can be encouraged to share their perspective. So it's about making sure that there's no fear of providing feedback or providing your viewpoint, understanding that we do have diversity in our teams and we'll have diverse ideas and experiences and values maybe, and we should embrace that, understand that, and that will help us come to the perspective of what's the best thing for us at this point. Next point's around collective intelligence. So as I've said, it's around combining the knowledge and experience of team members. And I guess this is that thing around being greater than the sum of your parts in the team. So by sharing these things together, collaborating, sharing your views and ideas can help you make better informed decisions. Also around shared purpose, it helps to align team working towards common goals that team members are committed to because they've been involved in identifying and thinking about what that shared purpose is. And final point there is around learning in action. So through this continuous improvement approach, which we can really foster through a coaching approach, it's around teams knowing that they can learn with every experience and have that ability to build on both successes and failures together. So the idea that we'll get better by doing things together and we'll create that space to learn and reflect and then perhaps realign what we're doing and what direction, what path we're on. So lots of real benefits in there when we get team coaching right. Now, those of you who've been to a few of my lunch and learns this year, you'll notice every month I sort of highlight one book which relates to the topic. And this month I've chosen one from an author called Peter Hawkins, who's written many coaching and leadership books. There's a whole host of books really around coaching that you can use, but this one in particular from Peter Hawkins and Catherine Carr is around it's called Team of Teams coaching, but it explores the links between team coaching and team culture and organizational success. So the model that I've put up there on the slide is what Hawkins refers to as the 5 disciplines of team coaching. And I think these fit really well to what we do with TED. And when we look at these 5 steps, firstly, around the external part of this model, we've got considerations about the internal and external environment. It's about thinking about our current tasks, but also the processes that help us do the work that we do. But the 5 steps involve, first of all, commissioning. So this would be where a team leader would agree the coaching arrangement. They'd be making clear on the purpose, what's our intended outcomes of this coaching, what are our expectations, and who's involved in this, who do we need to get involved, who can help us make these sorts of decisions. Second point on there is about clarifying. So successful team coaching is one where every stakeholder is clear on their role and what they're trying to achieve. And it's about clarifying your objectives so that everybody understands their responsibilities and how they contribute towards this being a successful coaching approach, I guess. Next point is about co-creating. So successful team coaching involves co-creating your solutions together. So it's about everyone in the team feeling able to contribute and able to understand different contributions that come from other members of the team. So what this does is it helps teams work together. It helps them consider their current context, but it also helps to unlock that collective intelligence, which I mentioned on the last slide. Point 4 is about connecting. So when we can connect our teams together, it strengthens team bonds. It also strengthens our external relationships as well. And it helps us take that systems view as well, because we're able to, I guess, piece all the parts of the puzzle together to gain that wider understanding. So good team coaching will ask the questions to get teams to consider all these different factors and get at different people's views so that you do have that shared understanding of the wider context and what's the right next steps for us to take. And then finally, right at the center of this is that core learning idea. So this idea of a continuous improvement approach through a cycle of assessing a situation, collecting feedback, and adapting your approach based on what information have you got at this point in time. And it's been open to the idea that sometimes we'll try things that don't work, but that's okay because we'll learn from it and we'll get better because of that experience we've got together. So sometimes it's about being open to perhaps making mistakes sometimes, or being able to backtrack or change the way that you head in as a team. So it's to support sustainable growth in our teams. So when we consider these different elements of this model, I think it makes clear parallels with what we encourage in the TED journey. So when we look at TED, this is our typical team process. And right at the start of the TED cycle, we encourage team leaders to introduce the team to TED, and they'll be setting out the process, they'll be defining the different roles, they'll be talking to the team around, what is TED, how are you all going to contribute to this, why are we doing it? So you're sort of setting that scene. And then as the team does that, they'll be sort of clarifying how they're going to work on it, what's the process involved in TED, when we're going to have our feedback meeting, what's our action plan going to look like possibly. So you start to do that with your team. As the team works together on the TED results, so they start to have that team feedback session, they'll be co-creating their action plan, and that will reflect the range of views that have come out either in the TED survey or in the team conversation, and they'll work on shared actions. So what we always encourage through TED is any actions that come out of it are things which apply to every member of the team. They're not so specific that they're just for the team leader or just for one particular person. They're things which everybody has a part to play. And that really helps to build that togetherness through teams and that commitment towards the objectives that you do set. And then finally, it's about connecting all these things together. So it's around actually putting that together, using it as part of your work together as a team, and sort of embracing the TED process. And when we put all these things together, we generate that core learning through continuous improvement. And each time a team repeats their TED, they'll get that little bit more information around what direction are we heading in, how have we changed since last time we did this, and whether it's been 6 months or 12 months since we last did TED, what does that tell us about that time period? How has the work that we've done impacted on our culture and how we feel now as a team? So I think this illustrates really well how really the TED process is a coaching process. This is really closely aligned with that team coaching model. And really, I think coaching is the skill which can pull every part of TED together and make it work really well. So next up, how can we support team coaching? So our role as practitioners, some of you might be coaches yourselves, you might get involved in coaching in different types of capacity, but coaching culture in an organisation exists when we can encourage coaching style questions, coaching conversations across multiple different facets of what we do. And what it does do is it encourages the organisation to learn and grow together. So this is definitely somewhere where we can help as practitioners. And there's different points to this that I can think of. First of all, I think the sort of most obvious thing that we can do is role model this ourselves. So be part of that coaching culture. When you are supporting team leaders, use coaching as your approach to help them navigate maybe what their TED results are telling them, or maybe concerns or support requests that they might have. Think around how you can use coaching to try and empower those leaders, those team members as well, and give them the confidence to take the steps that will help them. As much as we want to help, coaching rather than instructing can help build that capability and confidence in others. Second point there is around looking for ways to develop coaching skills. So I know some of your organisations, you might have coaching specific courses, others might embed it into your TED team leader training, or maybe into your leadership development programs. So if you can identify those opportunities to embed coaching, it encourages these types of skills in our leaders. Third point is around creating safe spaces where team leaders can practice their coaching approach. And I think this is really important for team leaders to have. I think things like supervision opportunities, maybe community events where they can practice these skills, or workshops. And I know from our own coaching programs that we run at Lancs Teaching, some of the points where I think people get the most out of it is when they get to have a try. You get to have a try at what's it like to be asked coaching questions? What's it like to ask coaching questions to help someone explore a topic? How might team coaching work? So the more opportunities and safe opportunities we can give team leaders to practice these skills, I think the better and the more confidence that can build. Next point there is around aligning systems and processes to integrate coaching. So I think we can do this through things like performance management approaches, team development work through TED, maybe our leadership frameworks. There's lots of different opportunities where we can sort of weave in coaching across our offer. So I think this is definitely something we can do as practitioners to try and make coaching just part and parcel of everything else we do. It's part of that broader leadership and management skill set and toolkit that they can have. And finally, there is that point around coaching tools and frameworks. So definitely we want to provide leaders with the tools so that they can apply coaching in real scenarios, in scenarios that really relate to them. So many of our toolkits in TED are geared towards just that, enabling coaching style conversations and giving team leaders the right questions to ask so that they can get to actions which will help their team, whatever might come up on the TED survey. So lots of things that we can do there to sort of embed this approach. Okay, so that's enough for me. I wanted to ask you a question at this point. In what ways do you encourage coaching in your organisation? So would anyone like to share? Does anyone have coaching programs? How do you approach it in your different trusts? Sam, would you like to go in?
Hi. So we have an in-house coaching service. So first and foremost, so obviously that's offered out to anybody who needs a coach. It's somewhat depleted at the moment, but we do have it. But we also run a coaching program. So I deliver that because I'm one of the coaches in the organisation. So we do that once a month, and we just call it Everyday Coaching Conversations. But we encourage all levels of staff to attend that because obviously we want to spread it across all layers. It's not just for managers, it's for everybody. But obviously we do encourage it with our managers, and our leadership programs has a coaching module on each of them as well. Again, that is then designed for managers and sort of that higher level coaching scenario. But yeah, so we're pretty good with that side of things, I think.
Marvelous, fab, yeah, and it sounds very similar to what I'll bring Ian in shortly, who's going to talk about some of the things we're doing at Lancs Teaching. But yeah, I think that's really good to encourage coaching in those different ways. I think sometimes it can be a challenge to get that reach with coaching across your organisation, but yeah, definitely ways we can support that coaching approach and embed those skills can be really useful, and it will also help your team leaders who are using TED, I think, when you can do those sorts of coaching programs. So that's brilliant. Thanks, Sam. Sean, would you like to go in next?
We're very similar to Sam, really. We've got a coaching network, again, very much depleted from when we first started. We also we run a program called Coaching as a Leadership Style. And very much we take that off site because of the just gives a different dimension to it, and we have a full day where we take it off site, introduce them to some coaching models, T-Grow, things like that, and then all the afternoon is practice, and again it gets different people and it starts a network up. You know, we've got lots of people that have actually done the course, and we try and keep that network going as well. So we have got I don't do the technical stuff, but somebody's created a page on Teams where we keep resources and things for people that they can drop in and see stuff like that.
Wonderful, fab. Yeah, I like that idea of taking it off-site. I know it can be a challenge sometimes, you know, getting team leaders to give that time away, but I think having that protected space can be really useful. Coming back to what I was saying before around that safe space to try some coaching questions out, have a feel at what it's like in a cohort of like-minded coaches or future coaches. I think that's a really good idea, and definitely that community as well. So you're creating that support network for people. I think that's a fantastic idea. Thanks, Sean. Christine, would you like to go in next?
Thanks, Lee. Good morning, everyone. Oh, good afternoon, everyone now, actually. Sorry, apologies. So within BHT, we have something something called the Buckinghamshire Health and Social Care Academy. So there is a coaching and mentoring pool supporting sort of leaders, or actually any colleagues across the trusts within BHT, but also we work very closely with the council. So I myself is one of the qualified coach within the coaching pool, and I do sometimes find it actually quite useful that you're not coaching someone within the same organization. And I think because I'm a coach myself with the coaching pool, that's probably part of the reason that within our trust, our TED leaders is supported by a group of TED coaches. So we call the team of people that are supporting those team leaders on their TED journey, they're our TED coaches. So that's us. Thank you.
Lovely. Yeah, thanks, Christine. And yeah, I agree. Sometimes coaching people outside your organisation can help give you different perspectives. And sometimes for the coachee, they can feel safer sometimes when they're sharing things with someone who's a bit removed from a situation. So I think that can help as well. But yeah, I like that approach to TED coaches, and you're there, and that idea of being a coach means that you can support, but not in a way that's going to give the answers. And I think that's really important with TED, because that's what we want to encourage. We want to get teams to come up with their own answers. So I think anything which sort of lends itself to that is really good. Megan, would you like to go in?
Yeah, just kind of to add to what Christine has already said, we also have a leadership development program alongside kind of what we're doing in OD, and we run kind of different stage levels of that program. So we call them peak 1, peak 2, peak 3, and therefore different leaders at different stages to kind of do. But one of the programs kind of at peak 2 stage is also coaching for performance. So we do have that running alongside what we're doing in TED in the OD kind of space, is this kind of like clear program for development of our leaders as well. And part of that is definitely looking at coaching skills to kind of improve management performance, but also team performance as well.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I love that idea. Having it as part of your leadership programs really sort of embeds it as one of those core skills that can really help leaders. And I think the fact that you've got it at different levels and as part of your TED training as well helps to give leaders that perspective that coaching can be used in a range of different scenarios. If you can get those skills, coaching an individual, there's a lot of crossover with coaching a team, and there's lots of things you can use for career coaching that can also be useful for team development or other topics that you might explore. So it's a really valuable skill set to have. Thanks for sharing, Megan. And Oliver, I noticed in the chat you've put that you've got different coaching programs. You've got a half-day coaching skills. You've got a 5-day workplace coaching programs, perhaps a more intensive one there, and various CPD sessions for your coaching network as well. So yeah, wonderful. Thanks for sharing, Ollie. And yeah, another good example of different ways you're integrating coaching and putting it out. And I think that idea of having different shapes and sizes of programs can be useful, because I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all approach. For certain leaders, that 5-day program might be absolutely great for what they need. For others, those more accessible, perhaps CPD sessions that they can dip into, get some of the skills to try out with their team, those can be really great for leaders who might be struggling to get to that 5-day, or who 5 days might be too fast for them. So it gives them that variety and those options to take on the right approach for them. So wonderful. Thanks everyone for sharing some really good points there. I love all those. So next, I'm going to hand you over to our coaching lead from Lancs Teaching Hospitals, Mr. Ian Mills. Welcome, Ian. Would you like to take over the slides, or do you want me to keep ticking along
You
for you.
keep doing it, Lee, if that's all right. It'd be more complicated for me to swap over at this point, if that's all right. Mr. Ian Mills, thank you, Lee. I haven't had a
Right.
Mr. for a long time. I do feel old though now, folks. Thank you very much for allowing me into this space. We asked at the beginning around what's your favourite coaching question. I didn't put mine in, but one of mine is what assumptions are being made here? And as I'm not going to make any assumptions, I'm going to assume that you've all got some great stuff in your organisations around coaching and coaching practice. I'm not going to assume that what we've got is anything better or anything different than what you've got. I'm just here to help you sort of look as to how we've started to build the coaching approach deliberately into TED and with TED. And you'll see that with regards to the branding. Okay, so quite clearly we've branded our coaching hub alongside the TED resources. Why are we doing it? Because it's really tricky times, and our leaders out there will lead based on who they are. And at this moment in time, they're leading based on who they are in very, very difficult circumstances. And as a result, people will say to me, Ian, I've come and I need to do a TED. And I'll say, you all right? And they'll go, no, not really. I'm not really in the right headspace. So it was around from the first place, how can we get coaches to support people pre-TED? How can we use coaching approaches and tools during a TED? And then how can we use to embed coaching for impact post a TED? So the coaching hub basically is a bit like yourselves. We run a developing a coaching culture half day. We run accredited ILM programs in coaching, ILM 3 and ILM 5. We've got about 60 people on program currently. We run 3 cohorts a year. And we built the coaching hub, which now allows for anyone to go onto their e-learning site in the trust, press coaching, request a coach. And all our coaches are in there. It's all been branded. We've all got signatures, like you said before, Teams channels, etc., etc. This is the start. The ambition is to have 40 plus coaches sat there across all levels. I've got everything from band 3 to about an 8B, 8C maybe at this moment in time, trained up to be coaches. I suppose if you take our director on board, there'll be others out there at 9 level who want to be coached. Like I say, it may not be anything different than what you've got. We're just trying to align the offer so that it can be really visioning for people. And a lot of coaching is simple. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? You know, and how are we going to get you through that? Next, Lee, is that okay? Okay. So a lot of problems we find with the leaders currently is this sort of thing of how to unlearn, holding on to old beliefs, okay, and thinking the factual about how we go about things, what got them where they are now won't get them where they want to be, and lots of things. And that mindset there of coaching, the challenge offers, it's difficult to unlearn things for people, to get them to try new things and do things differently. So I'm interested in your thoughts on unlearning and how that's going to be with leaders within your organization. Jeanette?
I think one of our real difficulties is working within health and social care. There's a tendency to want to fix and solve things for people. So in these situations, it's encouraging them to unlearn that and actually try it from a coaching perspective, because they always want to make it better for somebody. And that is a really hard shift to make for some people.
Yeah, and I think we all like to be liked, don't we? So we like to, people come to us for advice and they ask us, and we like to be liked. So therefore, you're right. Unlearning is really interesting for people, because it's not going to be what they're used to, and actually it can be quite awkward for them in the first place. Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you for that. Great sharing. Who else have we got? Becky.
Hello. I think the challenge is the tension in our organisations with operational pressures, and there being not the same, there's not a value seen in reflective spaces and time to slow down, to do some thinking spaces. And I often will hear leaders saying it feels rather almost too almost like the time can't be given to it. It seems too self-indulgent, I suppose, is some of the feedback that we get. So it's something around those tensions and our cultures that don't signal that this is a priority.
Oh, that's
Is a
really
challenge.
interesting, Becky, isn't it? It's really interesting around time. I know Wendy's put in the chat. I mean, there's the cult of busy out there, 100%, and trying to help people from a leadership and OD perspective around busy and time. The guilt around reflection, to find that time. But ultimately, what we are finding with leaders, particularly with TED, and we've socialized a lot of the stuff that's in this presentation, we've kept it as simple as we can, and they've realized they can find time. They have got the time, particularly pre a TED session, they can set their mind to do stuff. And how we leave the TED facilitated session, having co-produced something simple with the team, they're really appreciated. And it's almost for those coaches on the session, when you coach people one-to-one, you literally hear the penny drop in people's minds, and you're like, okay, you see the realization. But when Lee and I ran through these very simple things, they were like, oh, that doesn't take long, or we can do that. And they appreciated those takeaways. Within the hub, there's about 45 different coaching tools that we've sort of pulled together, and slowly but surely we'll take the appropriate teams one into the TED environment, and then we'll expand it out. The ones we've got on here today are simple, are easy, they've been socialized, people like them, and you'll be able to take them away. But there'll be more coming down. Anyone else got anything else unlearning? Has anyone unlearned anything recently? Decided not to do something because it served you better. No, I've decided to stop telling my 26-year-old what to do. Doesn't work. There's no point. Let him work it out for himself. So why do I need coaching? I'm probably topping 500 odd sessions at the moment over the last 4 years. Quite a lot of people are broken in some ways, but we come up with lots of different topics that come out of coaching. We talk about perfectionism, imposter syndrome. We talk about paranoia. We'll talk about time. We'll talk about things that are anchored to the past, etc. But a lot of them come into 3 main topics currently. There's a lot of doubt. Okay, so when we socialize the coaching topic with TED, we get to socialize it with the TED team, with the team leader who's doing the TED, and we can help them around their coaching journey. We can get them to identify people in their teams who, once they understand what coaching is, may be able to access coaching, because we're talking about trying to retain the best staff. Value for money, talent management, and retention currently are the biggest games in town. If we've got people that are doubting around where they are and what's happening, actually, how do we get them to be in the best possible place and fit for the future? We've got people who are suffering from lots of burnout for lots of reasons. People are very busy, as they say, but burnout linked to depletion of exhaustion, increased disconnection. We're talking about people who are quietly quitting, that reduced productivity, quietly quitting because of what's currently going on, and how do we see an end to it? And then we've got the people at the bottom who are stagnating a little bit. Okay, and how do we get people to go from languishing to flourishing? How do we get teams to go from languishing to flourishing? And a lot of that's around the co-production that Leah said, and you'll know by doubt, but doubt about where we are in the future, feeling as though it's all coming on top and it's too much, and how do I get from languishing to flourishing are really big parts of how we are working with the teams through the TED journey. Coaching people in action. Simple sort of statements. Taking a coaching approach encourages people to take responsibility. They are empowered to get a sense of autonomy that leads to better solutions. Being told what they should do will not work. And I don't know if you notice in your organizations, this next generation coming through really don't want to be told. Okay, they're not used to being told. They're used to being coached. They're used to being cajoled. They're used to being treated very, very differently. And the current environment, we need to be taking the talent within that organization, and doing the best that we can with them. And that's that little bit there. That's that simple thing, trying to get to TED team leaders to say, when the next time one of your members of staff comes to you for some advice, try asking them a few questions instead. Try just asking a coaching approach. And that great statement there. What's the best that could happen? Yeah, so we're trying to get this approach with our team leaders, with TED, to then get them to using a coaching approach. And also it helps them pre, during, and post a session. So dead simple. Coaching is about getting people unstuck from start to finish. And this really is simple, folks. So please, I'm taking no credit for it. It's been plagiarized all the way out. But actually, where are you now? Where do you want to be? And all we've done is say to people in the sessions, divide a piece of paper into 3. Put where you are now on the left-hand side. Put what your vision is on the right. Most of our people don't have a vision. Okay? What's your vision? Where do you want to be in 12 months' time? What does good look like in a year's time, 18 months? When we do our next TED, what would it look like if we've made all the changes? Okay, we tend to get lots of visions around hitting metrics, not hitting around people-centered issues. So what's my vision? Okay, where are we now? What's my vision? And in the middle, they write the word gap. And they write down all the things that are stopping them getting, all the blockers that are in the way. And if you do CI, this is very, very, very similar to some of the CI work. It's just badged in a coaching way. Okay. And then after they've written all the blockers, we simply get them to draw a bridge across. Draw a bridge across the where they are, the current state to the future state, and then just ask them to what's the first 3 steps they can do to get there. What are those small actions that someone said earlier on? What can I do? What will I do to get where I need to go? And we did this, and you do it into a team. As a team, where are we now, folks? This is where, as the leader, I see the vision is for us in the future, and this is what good looks like, and how do you contribute to that? Right? What's stopping us? What is stopping us? Right? What, as individuals, 3 things we can do? What, as a team, what are the first 3 things we will do to get where we want to go? And honestly, it literally was like hearing several pennies drop. And it is no more complicated than that. Some coaching tools can be very complicated. The ones we're going to use here are going to be easy. So where are we now? With the TED. Where do we want to be around our vision? What's the bridge that's going to get across us? Really, really simple tool put in within a TED format. And again, you can use this particular tool with a leader prior to a TED. Where are you now? Where do you want to be in 12 to 18 months' time? What are your blockers, and what do you need to be able to get across that?
I've just bring Megan,
which is fabulous.
You got your hand up there,
Megan.
Have a question?
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose it's more of a reflection, but thank you. I think it's really useful to see the kind of action laid out as kind of a thought process around where are we now and where do we want to be. One of the things I've noticed recently from kind of speaking to teams, but also I'm on the NHS graduate scheme. I am probably that younger generation that you're talking about. But I think one thing I notice when kind of watching other leaders do this as well is there is quite a difficult point to kind of reach first before doing before coaching what really works, where there's moving from like an operational mindset to thinking about something more strategically and seeing the value in that strategic approach over kind of constantly firefighting in operational modes, because you know, leaders on the ground, that's kind of what they're seeing all the time, and it's the thing that has that, you know, that the biggest pressure point for them. I think I'm also moving placements in the next couple of months, so this will be my last TED session with everyone here, which it's been really nice throughout this year to kind of see progress in TED in our team, but also listening to the ways that you're all working. I just wondered if there might be kind of a moment to kind of talk about how much this kind of tool about thinking about where you want to be can kind of help maybe move towards understanding why strategic thinking might be better than, or does have a place and has use, rather than kind of doing that operational mindset all the time, because I know I can see why that happens. But I think yeah, there's a piece in the coaching space about trying to show also why it matters to think about the strategy.
Megan, don't get me on the NHS and strategy, okay, because I'm really not so sure. People talk about strategy and I'm really not so sure. We've got some very good ones gathering dust. We really do. That's across public sector as a whole, an entirely different conversation for another day, and I love that. Someone's also put in the chat around, it links to controlling the controllables. Absolutely. But one of the controllables is what we can do as a team, what I can do as a leader, what we can do for our team in a sea of uncertainty around us. And part of that is to do coaching approaches with a TED mindset. And part of that's knowing, where do I want to be in 12 months' time? Well, once I've done my TED and we've worked out where our team's going to be, Lee and I have got another resource called Me on a Page. Okay, well, where do each of my members of staff want to be in 12 to 18 months, 2 years' time? What motivates them to come to work? Who are they? What are their values? What do they grinds their gears? What's their development areas? All that Me on a Page links to staff survey questions, links to better staff engagement, links to development, which is what we're trying to nod towards as we develop the tools, but deliberately keeping them simple so that team leaders can just do this. You can do this in a one-to-one with someone. You can do it in a TED team leader. TED is the team, but the individuals make up the team. And therefore, it's really, really important. And I'm conscious of time. Megan, happy to have a conversation with you anytime about strategy. Again, really simple. Particularly in healthcare, we use GIBS a lot. But actually, what do we do? It's post of a TED about what's happened. Team. So what does that mean to us all as a team? Now what we're going to go and do about it. The same for the manager. What does this mean for me now, these results? So what? Okay, now what do I need to do? The easiest reflection model you can possibly come up with, but actually that allows you to look to try and embed impact. What changes have we made? How will we know when a difference has been made? How will we measure impact? The benefits realization part of a TED is where the coaching approach starts to take a hold and help you. Okay, and then again, okay, really good questions linked to the TED. What can I do now? What are the 3 things I can do? What are the 3 things I or we will do as a team? Okay, and then how are we going to get back together again to know that it's landed, to know that we've followed success, to know that we've got impact? Organizations talking about impact all the time now, post-TED impact. How are these I can and I will getting you closer to the vision of what you wanted? And again, these are currently the start of the toolkits. So getting unstuck, that toolkit. We've got the what, so what, now what. We've got one that's called what's the best that can happen. That's a list of CI-linked kata questions that have been changed into coaching questions that give you the benefits realization bit of how will we know what success looks like, how are we going to monitor it, how are we going to measure impact. And that is a whistle-stop tour with 4 minutes to go of what we're doing. Happy to take any questions, any emails, anytime. And if you've got something that you think is better, please let me know because I'll happily borrow it with pride. Thank you very much.
Marvelous, thank you so much, Ian. And yeah, I think that's something that really resonates, and I think it applies across NHS organisations. We all see similar things that leaders are experiencing, similar challenges in terms of getting this coaching approach working, and that is absolutely the core of what we want to do with TED. And those, as Ian says, quite simple things that teams can do, quite simple questions to ask, or quite simple, quick things to apply. I think these are really useful for teams that do feel really stretched, that do feel that perhaps they don't have that capacity to think about the bigger picture. Helping to give them the confidence that it is the right thing to do is really important, but helping to give them practical steps which don't seem too onerous. So it's more about tweaking what we're doing and trying to be mindful of that direction we're heading in, so that we can build that confidence and capability together. But yeah, as Ian says, these are 3 tools which we've developed. I say Ian's developed a lot of these, but the things which we're going to add to the TED Toolkit, so you'll be able to download them as well. So I think they're on there now, but if not, I'll make sure they'll be on by the end of the day today for you to download and have a look at, share with your teams, and perhaps using your own coaching approaches as well. So in summary, I guess what we're trying to encourage from you today is think around your own approach to coaching, think around how it does align with what you're doing with TED, think around, are there any other opportunities that anyone shared today which might be good things you can apply into your own organisation? Perhaps will those tools that we've showed, are those things which you can build into some of the sessions you're running, or some of the sort of advice and guidance you might be giving to your team leaders? We want to encourage our team leaders to coach, and we might do that in several different ways. It might be through using coaching yourself, role modeling, that coaching behavior, those sorts of skills, sharing questions, having communities of coaches, of team leaders where you can share ideas and ask questions, and maybe work through things together as a team leader community as well. So that there's lots of opportunities in there. And finally, I will share a link in the chat, but if you could give us some feedback on today, I hope you've all found it useful. I certainly have. It's really useful to hear what sorts of things you're all doing in your organisations. There is a QR code up on screen, but I'll add a link to the feedback form in the chat. But do let us know how you found today's session, and if there's any other topics you'd like us to explore, or if you'd like us to go a bit further into coaching. We have invited Ian back for our next quarterly deep dive, so in a couple of months in September we'll be doing that, and we'll share a little bit more about what we're doing, what Ian's doing with the coaching hub at Lancs Teaching, but we're really keen to hear your stories as well, of things you've tried, things that are working, maybe things that haven't worked as well, and we can work through those sorts of things together. But do give us your feedback. It is really valuable to us. And just before we finish, we're about right on time, just to signpost you to our next event. So next month we do have a lunch and learn on the 19th of August. So I'm thinking this one will be around building accountability in your teams, which is something team leaders ask us for a lot. We've got a coffee catch up. Next one's next week on the 5th of August, and we've one in September as well. And as I say, that quarterly deep dive, 2 hours on the 23rd of September. So we'll talk a little bit about coaching in there, a little bit about staff survey as well. We're coming up to that time of year again. But as always, keen to share your stories and answer any questions you might have as well that can help you do perhaps some of that TED work, maybe that staff survey work as well in your own organisations. So thank you everyone for coming along today. Thank you for your questions and your contributions. It's been lovely to see you all, and I wish you the best rest of your week. And if you've got holidays coming up, have a lovely summer break, and we'll see you again soon at our next event. And thank you, Megan. If this is your final event, it's been lovely to have you on board, and hopefully our paths will cross again in the future. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye.